And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Living in Korea, I'm always very interested to see what Korean games are going to be popular, which Korean games are going to do well, and I think the one that has done the best, especially outside of Korea, would be Gemblo, an abstract placement game in which you're placing hexagonal pieces on the board, trying to get out as many as you can. If you've ever played the game Blocus, this is a very similar game except it uses hexagons, and because it handles 2, 3, 4, and 6 players very well, and even 5 a little bit, I think that it has a great edge up on Blocus. With a game of this success, though, it's inevitable that variations are going to show up, and here's one, Gemblo Red Stone. Now, Red Stone is a very popular cartoon in Japan, which has trickled over to Korea, and thus that theme was added to the game. Each player at the beginning of the game takes a team and gets 5 special cards for that team. For example, here is the Thief and Monk team, and you get 5 skill cards. This is skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, skill 4, and skill 5, and each of these skills is different for the different teams. And these cards will come into play during the course of the game. Let me show you a little bit of the board. Here's the Gemblo board, and the amount of players determines how much of the board you're going to use over the course of the game. The whole board will be used for a 6-player game. There's a square for a 4-player game, spaces with a 4-leaf clover on them for a 3-player game, and then a 2-player game you would go back and use the square for the 4 players again, but each player would use 2 colors. Players receive a whole pile of pieces in their color. These pieces are made up of hexagons that are joined together, and they range from one small little hexagon to pieces that are made up of 5 hexagons formed together. A player's first piece on their turn, they're basically placing pieces on the board, starts in their starting space, and after that, players are going to determine their next piece by making sure that it's an apex of this piece has a line on the board. The board is made up of hexagons itself. That goes from one apex of one piece to the other of another piece. So you can see that this piece here is placed legally because there's a line between them. This would also be fine. This would be fine. But pieces can never be next to another piece of their own color, nor can they be more than one apex away on the board. For example, this would be illegal. They're only one hexagon apart, but there's no line that's connecting them. So once you place a piece legally, you can place more pieces on future turns. And what you're basically trying to do is trying to get all your pieces on the board, but other players are not only trying to get their pieces on the board, but they are trying to block you so that you can't place your pieces. You're allowed to put your piece next to the piece of another color, and you cannot go through a piece of another color. So if this piece was here, this piece could not be placed here. However, if these 2 pieces were here, the purple could come through afterwards. And you're just trying to see how many pieces you get on the board. At the end of the game, you count all the pieces that you couldn't get on the board, you count the hexes of those, and that's how many negative points you get. That's regular Gemblo. Red Stone Gemblo adds in these skill gems. At the beginning of the game, players get a certain amount of these that they can place in different spots all along the board. Whoever starts in last position gets the most of them. Whoever starts in first position, because they have a great advantage, gets the fewest amount. When you place a piece that would give you one of these pieces, you take it and add it to your hand or in front of you. At the end of the game, those are worth 1 point, but depending on how many you have, determines which of these cards you can use. For example, if I have 1 gemstone, I can use only the level skill 1 card, and this allows me to skip 2 when moving. And there's other ones that allow you to jump. There's cards that will cancel other cards. There's cards that let you attack different positions on the board, but you can't use your level 5 skill card until you have 5 of these gems on the board. So these gems serve 2 points. One is to give you extra points, and the other is so that you can play your cards. Let me show you a real brief game in action without the cards and without the gems, just a basic game of Gemblo and basically how it looks as it's being played. Well, It's very difficult to play 4 players at one time like that. You can see I skipped purple a few times as I was going around, and I play a lot more carefully, concentrating only on my own color. And you can see yellow started off well, then they got themselves cut off from one whole section of the board. In this instance, green is probably going to win the game because they've managed to get all across the board. But these cards can really change how the player is going. The princess and the little witch, for example, using their cards, they can shield and have people not jump through them, or they can jump directly through another player, and that really can change the game depending on where the skill gems have been placed and have been captured by different players. Is this game worth getting if you already own Gemblo? I'm going to say no. I mean, the cards are neat. It's a neat idea. I don't know if the only reason I would get this would be to get rid of the other Gemblo and keep this version. And if you're not a big fan of Red Stone, I guess you wouldn't have any idea who the Lancer and the Archer are and who all these characters are. But the artwork is neat, and the abstract game is still here. I've always thought Gemblo was a very good game. The first time I played it, the first day I played it many times. These cards are going to add a bit of the analysis paralysis to the game as you look at them and say, okay, I can steal a stone from someone else. I can skip through 2 different people. Where can I do that on the board? How can it help me get all my pieces on? You would think having these rules will allow you to get more pieces on the board, but actually they don't, because other players have the same different cards that allow them to do it too, and so the same amount of spaces are going to be blocked on the board. The rules are written okay. It's a translation directly from Korean, and they're understandable, but not that well. But still, overall, it's easy to play. Once you teach people, once they figure out how they can place pieces, it's a lot of fun. And you can play with the cards and skill stones or not. So you have basically Gemblo or a variant on it. And it's a good variant because I enjoy how each skill set of cards is completely different than the others. And even if you weren't going for those, trying to capture these and get that extra point is a lot of fun. So this is a good version of Gemblo. Not needed if you own the original, but if not, this is a worthy version to try out.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.